Hi, I'm Charles with Anycap. The story begins as a man walks through some alleyways and approaches the door while breathing heavily. Before he can open it though, the man wakes up and we see that it is our protagonist named Denji. He walks to a nearby town and thinks about how he can receive 60,000 yen a month for cutting down trees. He recently sold a kidney for 1.2 million and his right eye for 300,000. Even after all that, Denji reveals that he is still 38 million yen in debt. His pet Pochita growls angrily as it wants to fight something, and Denji explains that a dead devil can usually be sold for about 300,000. Devil hunting easily pays the best, and Denji prepares to use Pochita as a weapon. The scene cuts to after Denji has defeated the beast, and a man arrives to compliment his work. He explains that the devil's carcass will bring in a fair price on the black market, and so he will pay him 400,000 for it. However, the man reveals that Denji is still deep in debt and will owe him another 70,000. Denji leaves and explains to Pochita that he will have to pay off some other debts and will only be left with 1800 yen. They don't have food at home and the 1800 yen will have to last them an entire month, so their dinner will have to be a slice of bread. Nearby, two men discuss how Denji is working off a debt that was handed down to him by his deceased father. The driver is concerned that Denji might not be a serviceable hunter, and his boss explains that legitimate devil hunters don't sell devil carcasses to Yakuza like themselves. Denji will actually do what he is told, and the driver tests it by offering him 100 yen to eat a cigarette. Denji gladly does so, and the boss reminds him not to try to run away since they will always find him. That night, Denji and Pochita enjoy their dinner as he explains that he has heard people that can afford to will put jam on their bread. They aren't able to live a normal life though, and he thinks about how that also means he will never have a girlfriend. A look into the past shows the day Denji's father died, and the Yakuza boss explains that he will have one day to pay them an installment of 700,000 yen for his father's debt. When they leave, Denji encounters a small devil with a chainsaw on its head. He is prepared to die at its hands, but realizes that the devil is actually very injured. It is clearly on the verge of death, but Denji offers to let it bite him since devils heal by drinking blood. He explains that it won't be free though, and they will have to make a deal. They decide to help each other as Denji realizes he doesn't want to die after all, and Denji proves his worth as a devil hunter to the Yakuza. Back to the present, Denji has a difficult time sleeping and explains that he would like to have a dream about eating bread with jam on it so that he could share it with Pochita. He explains that the dream would also have him meet a nice girl he could play video games with and hug, but Denji then begins to cough up blood. He reveals that he heard his mother died from heart disease just as he is told about a devil that needs to be hunted. The Yakuza take him to an abandoned building, but Denji can't spot a devil anywhere. The boss commends Denji for being very useful, but things have changed, and Denji gets stabbed through the chest. Pochita is pierced as well, and the boss explains that the Yakuza have made a deal with the devil to achieve their greatest goals. This devil finally reveals himself and explains that he wants all hunters dead. He is the zombie devil and mocks the Yakuza for becoming his slaves in exchange for a bit of demonic power. He hates the hunters for killing devils and instructs his zombies to tear Denji apart. Denji does his best to get away with his loyal companion Pochita, and the two nearly make it to the exit but fall just short. He is caught and brutally injured as he can only think about how all he wanted was a normal life. Afterwards, Denji's dismembered body lies in a dumpster when some of his blood falls into Pochita's mouth. Pochita begins to wake up and we get a look into their past once again. Denji tells his loyal pet that he will likely die fighting a devil one day, and his only regret would be leaving Pochita all alone since he may be killed by another hunter. Denji explains that he has heard of devils that are able to take over dead bodies and states that if he can, Pochita should take his body. That way, at least Pochita can live a normal life, die a normal death, and live out the dream Denji couldn't. Just then, Denji's severed body parts begin to come together, and Pochita appears in a vision with Denji. Pochita is able to speak and explains that he had always liked hearing about Denji's dreams. Pochita makes a new deal with Denji and states that in exchange for his heart, Denji will have to show him his dream. Denji wakes up unharmed with a pull cord in his chest and calls out for Pochita. The zombie devil instructs his army to consume Denji completely this time, and Denji begins to wonder why the Yakuza became so greedy. He realizes that he was the same since he wasn't satisfied with the happiness he had with Pochita and always dreamt of something more. All that matters now though is the fight in front of him, and he pulls the cord on his chest just as he is swarmed by the horde of zombies. The zombie devil is pleased to see that it is finally over, but Denji emerges from the pile to reveal that he has undergone a transformation. The devil can't understand how it could be possible, but Denji doesn't give him time to think, and instantly attacks him. The devil does well to create distance between Denji and himself, but Denji's determination is relentless. He slashes through several zombies as he makes his approach to the zombie devil and slices him in half. Denji is now simply a devil hunter in a building filled with devils, and he pulls his cord once more. He states once they are all dead, he won't owe anyone, and continues his attack. Later, a group arrives at the building to find that they are too late. The woman named Makima smells Denji and realizes that he is neither human nor devil. Denji asks that she hug him before he falls, and he reverts back to his normal self. She confirms that he is not possessed and explains to Denji that they came to kill the zombie devil. They are devil hunters with public safety, and she gives them two options. Either she kills Denji like a devil, or she keeps him as a human. Denji just wants to know what he will be fed, and she explains that he can have bread with butter and jam along with some dessert. Denji is sold and states how awesome that sounds. On the ride to their facility, Makima explains that she will only accept yes or woof from Denji, as she does not need a dog that tells her no. This makes Denji realize that Makima is much scarier than he originally thought, and remembers how Pochita is now dead. Makima then asks him if he wants her to treat him to some breakfast, and offers him her coat. Denji thinks about how no one has ever been this nice to him before, much less a girl, and he proclaims to himself that he loves her. As they order their food, Denji collapses and explains that the chainsaws cut him up as well, so he is low on blood at the moment. Makima is curious, so Denji explains that his loyal companion Pochita sacrificed himself so that he could live. Makima explains that there isn't much precedent for his condition, and it doesn't even have a name. She trusts her sense of smell though, and assures Denji that his best friend is alive inside him. He's glad to hear that she means it in a literal sense, but faints only to wake up moments later in front of food. Denji pretends that he is not able to eat on his own, so that she feeds him, and he asks what type of guy she likes. He anxiously waits for her answer, and she states that she likes the Denji type. This statement would replay in Denji's head as they finally reach their headquarters. Makima explains the benefits of being a devil hunter with public safety, but he can only think about dating her. After putting on their uniform, Denji is introduced to a coworker that he will be shadowing named Hayakawa. Denji is disappointed to be leaving Makima, but she explains that if he does a good job, then they can work together someday. Denji wants to know if Makima has a boyfriend, but Hayakawa ignores him and takes Denji somewhere to beat him up. Hayakawa tells Denji to quit and explains that he is just being nice. Hayakawa states that only properly motivated hunters are able to survive, and Denji only took the job because he is after Makima. Denji confirms it, and Hayakawa explains that he will let Makima know that he ran away at the first sign of danger. Denji fights back though, and explains that earlier that day he was treated like a decent human being for the first time. He states that if that means keeping his new life, then he doesn't care if it kills him. Hayakawa isn't finished and tells Denji not to go after Makima, only making him realize that Hayakawa must like her too. Denji ends the fight and they return to headquarters. The two clearly dislike each other, but Makima explains that Denji will be joining Hayakawa's unit. Hayakawa explains that he has enough troublemakers as it is, but Makima reminds him that his team was always meant to be an experimental one. She goes on to explain that Denji is a human that can transform into a devil. He will be given special treatment, but that means that if he becomes insubordinate, then he will be disposed of as a devil, and they will be working together until he dies. Afterwards, Hayakawa explains that they will be living together, but all Denji wants to know is if Makima is a good person. Hayakawa states that she is, and reveals that she was the person that saved his life, but Denji can only think about a day when he gets to hug her again. At their apartment, Denji feasts on toast with several jams spread over it, and makes himself comfortable. The next day, the two are called to handle something called a fiend. Hayakawa explains that when a devil takes control of a human corpse, you get a fiend. Denji believes that would make him a fiend, but Hayakawa explains that there is a difference that he will soon see. The two confront the fiend, and Hayakawa instructs Denji to transform into a devil and kill it so that he can figure out if Denji will be of any use. Denji uses his axe instead and explains that his powers as a devil do too much damage. He sympathizes with the fiend and didn't want it to go through so much pain. However, Hayakawa states that they should be treated like any other devil and reveals that his entire family was killed by a devil right in front of him. Hayakawa wants to make them suffer as much as possible and wonders if Denji would rather make friends with them. Denji explains that if there were a devil he could make friends with, then he would, since he doesn't have any friends. Hayakawa leaves and Denji thinks about what he was really trying to do was keep blood off some nearby magazines. Denji thinks about how he has already begun living the dream he promised to show Pochita, but wonders if there is something more. He thinks about how Hayakawa must be after some type of revenge and wonders what Makima is after. Just then, Denji comes to the realization that what he wants most is to be able to be close to Makima. He declares that it will be his goal and snaps out of his daydream to see he is back at headquarters. Makima explains that public safety will usually send two-person teams on smaller missions, and he will soon be meeting his partner. Makima states that she is a fiend just as the girl barges in to introduce herself as Power. Makima explains that fiends are targets of extermination just like devils, but Power is highly rational and is an exception. Makima reminds them that their team is an experimental one, and if the higher-ups decide they aren't performing well enough, then both Denji and Power will be terminated. The two head out on patrol, being sure to avoid populated areas since Power's horns stick out too much. Power demands that the human Denji provide her with something to kill immediately, as she is starved for blood, and he thinks about how he can hardly put up with her. As they are approached by police, Denji remembers that Makima told them to tell people they are with public safety. Power explains that she used to be a devil that was feared by everyone, and that is likely why they can't find any devils. Just then, Power picks up the scent of blood, and Denji must try his best to keep up with her. They find the devil nearby, and before the man that found it can finish asking for backup, Power dives in. She uses her blood to form a weapon and claims that the kill is all hers, as Denji watches in amazement. Thanks for watching part 1. Future parts will be in a pinned comment below.